Okay, it's working? Okay, cool. Hi, so yeah, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Zane. I've been coming to Fest since 2022, and I'm founding a new blogging platform called Silk. And I actually met my co-founder here during year one. So really quick, I just want to say thank you to the organizers for making this whole thing tick. Yep, you guys are very important. Yeah, and before we get started here, I just wanted to get a little heat check going. Yeah, how many people in here would call themselves a creative? Raise a hand. Yeah, okay, so that's like everybody. And then how many people in here would consider themselves to be an artist? Okay, it's like a pretty good amount. Yeah, cool. So today I just want to spend some time talking about something that's been very near and dear to my heart for a long time. Probably just about as long as I can remember, actually, going back to like 2010. Yeah, probably, yeah, very important to me. It makes me kind of emotional to think about, and it's called Instagram, if anybody has heard of this. Yeah, so I'll be spending most of this talk kind of talking about what Instagram and creative platforms kind of like it have done to creative culture, tracing through a sort of taxonomy of the creative class, highlighting a few different archetypes of creative people, talking about their tools, and starting with creators. So in 2025, we have these people called creators, which is basically a shorthand term for like a content creator. And we have this whole big thing around them called the creator economy, which is like this magical part of the internet where the average person can kind of eke out a living for themselves by making a video in their bedroom about their skincare routine or something like this. It's a magical, very magical thing. It's kind of like this new version of the American dream. And over the last 10 years, I think the term creator has morphed from this kind of general term for a creative person into something that's totally novel. And today, like, the creator is less of a creative person or an artist, and more of a middleman for distributing information or entertainment in exchange for some kind of capital, whether that be social or financial more concretely. And their work is very often tied to a financial imperative, and Vox is saying that this is something like 1% to 2% of the digital public, which sounds small, but it's an extremely competitive market. So there's already more content out there than we know what to do with, and there's not really enough attention for all of it in the day-to-day. And so what do? We have, and now we have like this AI-generated content hitting the market as well, and this is filling more spaces than I think we already even had access to, and it's just over the top. Meanwhile, the average person online, i.e. like this other 99% of people who is not a creator, is just ingesting, kind of like being flooded all of this content, and has been pushed into sort of this like, out of this productive content creator role, into something that's more like a managerial consumer role. And so the average person is no longer expected to contribute to the information economy, but instead to make use of what they consume to the most pleasurable and fulfilling extent. But we don't really have the tools to do that in the most effective way, which is this weird situation that we're all kind of stuck in. So if you're like me, you have this infinite flood of content coming in from all sides at all times of the day. I think some of it's nice and beautiful and artful, but most of it sucks. And we struggle to filter it, and the vast majority of it is not high quality by any means. It's been designed to grab my attention somehow. We all know this over and over, the same story. So welcome to the value of curation. We're going to come back to this in a little bit. We also have the creative. And for whatever reason, we've all decided that this word, very similar to the first, implies something different. There's like this positive, if not kind of pretentious, connotation to the term. Like, I think creatives kind of think of themselves, there's like this air of sophistication and dignity around like the creative practice and being a creative. You think of fashion designers and film directors and graphic designers and photographers, and basically like these creative professionals. So creatives are typically more skilled than creators. On the whole, they're trained, they've studied, they've gone to school, they may have a practice of some sort. They like to make things of all kinds, and their final product is a bit more highbrow than the content creators on the whole. But just like creators, these people seek to make things their job, in some way, shape, or form. So people still need to pay their bills and have a life outside of an ideal life that they can do what they love doing, which is creating something. And so at the end of the day, no matter what you want to do, you're kind of faced with this big challenge. Under the rule of the attention economy, creators are still in charge. So in order to find success in this creative market, it's become clear that the majority of creatives are beholden to the same distribution techniques as creators. So you're competing on the same playing field very often for the same pair of eyes as creators, and the only meta that matters at the end of the day is your ability to capture those people's attention and collect capital to kind of sustain your practice in your career. Otherwise, you have to go work at a natural wine bar or something. I don't make the rules here, but that's just how it goes. But the bottom line is if you want to succeed, you need to know how to get people's attention, no matter what you do, and this can be a really dismal thing. I think for a lot of people, it can be a really soul-sucking thing. So what do you do if you want to work a creative profession? I talk to a lot of people who are passionate about their own creativity, are quite talented, went to art school, like the whole 9 yards, but who remain extremely reluctant to make work with an attention-seeking component in mind. And they don't want their work to be sticky or necessarily for it to go viral. They just want it to be good. And so you can't just make great work and rely on traditional systems and networks to support you in the same way anymore. I think the fact that the creative act and being a creator or a creative person has been democratized and become so aspirational and accessible to so many people is awesome, but I think it also clouds up this market in ways where, again, these kind of historical means of achieving that kind of practice and sustaining it has become really hard. The market is just oversaturated. And so, yeah, it's not just about making something anymore and kind of following these trails that we've had. You now have to kind of present it in a compelling way too. And in a lot of ways, this presentation aspect, it feels like selling out. So there's kind of this sellout culture going on. And I also pick up on a really interesting thing. This is kind of a side note. It's like there's this just guilt, kind of general guilt that just riddles the creative class where you want to make something great and you want it to go somewhere and you want it to reach an audience. But you're kind of unwilling to lean into the cringe and the undignified version of making an attention trap or leaning into that aspect of I want this to hit the market in a certain way. And there's all these different techniques to do that. But it's interesting to kind of identify that just base component of how do I lean into this and why do I not want to lean into it? So in the middle of all this attention-driven kind of chaos, I think the artist is really dying. And this is the most important creative archetype of all to me. So you have creators, and you have creatives, and you have artists. And I think it's also probably the most misunderstood. It's really reassuring to see how many people in here are saying, I'm an artist, that's awesome. But I think a lot of people kind of reckon with the mythology and mysticism around what it means to make art. What is an artist? What is art? How can I make it? Can I make it? And so I want to spend a lot of my focus talking about this kind of thing from here on out. So art is a mysterious kind of out-of-reach thing to a lot of people, right? And they hear the word and they think of a Picasso painting or a Rembrandt or a Van Gogh or something like this. And they hear the word art and immediately they're transported to a white wall gallery room and it's quiet and there's canvas all over the wall and there's paint splatters and it's this serene kind of serious, austere thing. And all of a sudden they want to buy a MoMA hat and all these things. But there's this capital A art in America and it's just, it's this big elusive thing. But what's also funny is that when you ask the average person who their favorite artists are, kind of no context, there's a good chance that they'll start listing off musicians, not painters or any of these kind of, I think, historically recognized artists. So you think of a Drake or a Kanye. Someone I was talking to earlier was Fake Mink. And I think this definitely says something important about music's value as an art form, but it also indicates that the meaning of the word art and artist have been kind of divorced, and they occupy different places in people's minds. So I think art just really confuses a lot of people. So I think what I'm going to do here, I'm going to attempt to make it really simple for everyone in the best way that I know how, and just say, art is whatever you want it to be. And if you want to be an artist, you just can. And I think one of the biggest things that people fail to recognize over and over, or that they're never taught, is that being an artist in its most minimal form is simply just a way of living. You don't need to paint or sculpt or anything like this. You don't need to make a trip to the Blake art supply store when you get home this weekend. You don't need to, paint or sculpt or, sing or write or any of these things. It's whatever you want it to be. An art practice can be gardening or running, cooking, investing, or engineering. And your art doesn't need to live in a museum or a gallery to be art. So, in fact, your art doesn't even need to be tangible. Your art can just be the way that you conduct your life. The realist art, in my opinion, is made in private, and it has no greater purpose or aspiration. It's a lifestyle. The realist artists don't even have a choice to make art or not. It's just something that they feel compelled to do. Some of the best artists in history were not recognized as artists while they were alive. Many artists don't even think of themselves as artists, and this is all fine and well, but I think it's something that needs to change. So the artist does not necessarily intend to go to market, or to build a reputation, or to seek capital or become a professional at any one thing. I think art can be ugly, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't even need to be skillful work. It doesn't need to be finished. I think art doesn't need to have a defined message or reflect some preconceived logic or fit into a specific format. Literally none of that matters. So making art is this very democratic thing. It doesn't need approval or certification. You can just do it. And the only intent of the artist, I think, is to simply process their life through the creative act, like to process their emotions and feelings, excuse me, and experiences through the creative act. It's like this sort of self-fulfillment mechanism, and it's very freeing. So when I say something dramatic, like the artist is dying, what I really mean to say is that modern artists are having a really hard time navigating the creative environment of the digital age. And as a creative person in 2025, there's so much social pressure to participate in online culture, to monetize your creative practice somehow, and to get your work in front of people who can support you. So many artists kind of get sucked into this sinkhole of the creator economy incentives and abandon, unfortunately, their artful authenticity for like a lottery ticket at a sustainable career, thanks to an algorithm that can facilitate your work into a specific niche, to a certain person. We learn about these things, we lean into them. And you are almost inevitably always going to start trying to find the most efficient way to find your way into these kind of pockets. This is how the system is designed, and it's the structure that we live in. So your art, as soon as you put it out and as soon as you share it with someone, it becomes kind of this product of the attention economy. And unfortunately for many artists, I think the reward system of how creative products are distributed and consumed end up dictating how they make their art in the first place. So in most cases, the incentives are just too strong to consider any other alternative. And that's fair. It's not really on the fault of the individual, but on the design of the environments that we exist in. So right now, I think we are in sore need of artfully aligned digital infrastructure. In a place where the work and media we create, consume, and distribute can be supported by a system that allows for something more holistic than just the gamification of attention. We need a digital environment that incentivizes intentional consumption, critical thought, and healthier means of competition in the creative marketplace. The average creative person should not feel like they need to sell out by default. So I think the first place we should be turning to in search of this new infrastructure is curation. And hey, congrats if you're in this room, anybody, you are a curator. Even if you don't see yourself as an artist, and I'm, again, glad that so many of you do, you'll always be a curator at minimum. This is a default. There are levels of curation, but this is the base level of where creativity comes from. So at its core, I think curation is an act of personal discernment and making a choice to surround yourself with something that you enjoy or that inspires you or that fulfills you. So curation is the way that you decorate your home, the clothes that you buy, or the YouTubers that you subscribe to, the people that you choose to date, the diet you adhere to. So as consumers, we're all curators, and we're curating things every single day. And as we've already touched on, most of us are being bombarded by more media and content than we can reasonably handle. And this is something that is only going to get worse as the state of slop in AI-generated content accelerates. So the average internet user, not to mention the average creative person, is feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, overstimulated, and worst of all, I think, trapped. So I'm sure none of this is news to you all. But the same place we go to share our work and keep up with our friends is also the same place we go to surrender our dopamine receptors to assault. It's a bad place to be, no matter how you slice it. So again, the most important thing that creatives need right now, in my opinion, are better curation tools. And what you put in is what you get out. So, and people need to have the ability to exercise more control over the media they consume on a daily basis. When you are allowed to curate and own your media diet, there's no good reason to indulge attention-hacking content or consume garbage slop. Or in a social system where everyone is selecting their preferred content from the digital marketplace, protecting themselves is possible. And we can all exist, I think, without this unnecessary pressure to perform for views or maximize attention and kind of, that kind of capital. So where we can think more critically about our practices is a place that we need to be looking for, and where we can ultimately create better, more artful work alongside people who value the same things that we do. Just like in real life, the digital environment that you choose to live in, that you curate for yourself, is the key to fulfillment and better art. The sooner you recognize this, I think, the better your work will become. And have I told you about Silk yet? We'll end it there. But thank you, guys. I'm open for all questions here, and I appreciate everything. We can raise hands if you want. Ruby?
The work of a curator historically has been like a practice that you learn a lot about working for. So you start as an assistant at a museum, you make your way. What does it mean to not have to go through that arduous learning process before being a curator?
Say that last part again. Yeah, I think it's just a redefinition of the word, and also in a similar way, like what is the artist and this vaunted thing. Again, like the curator has been put into this world where in the past it's like, yes, you're curating for a gallery or a museum or something that it's like exists in this world that I think is not very accessible, but I think that's just a logic trap. Like I think that we just need to redefine the word and start figuring out ways that we can be more intentional, because that's all it is. Intentional in consumption and discerning in what we consume. It's that simple to me.
Would you redefine the term artist then as well?
I don't think I want to like get too deep into like redefining anything, but yeah, I just want it to be understood as something that is accessible and democratic in a way that I think prestige kind of tells us it shouldn't be. Yeah. Duncan.
So, how do you view the economy side of a new platform? Is it like a subscription model, or is there some kind of other way to like subsidize instead of just like charging the
Yeah. Yeah, no, the question there is like, and this is probably the most important question, is you can't build a system if it can't sustain itself. And so much of, I think, what our previous systems have been built off of is, again, attention hacking and harvesting and selling you ads based off of, your interests and kind of this profile that's been collected on what you care about. Like, I think that people should, if they, I don't think that this is inherently bad, but I do think that we need to be trying different ways to go about monetizing that that can sustain, mass culture in a way that is still like you can collect and reap the benefits of all these amazing things that I think these systems have given us. And so working through that process is a really important challenge. One of them is I think one of the ways to go about it is like you were kind of saying, like subscriptions. I don't think the average person out there in the world is ready to pay subscription for some kind of like social platform. But there are other ways to harness creativity and creative markets and groups of people who interface in these places, such as like exchanging goods and start taking, like facilitating these transactions, rewarding yourself with something that can, float the infrastructure that you've built. And it may not be as like top-end lucrative and profitable as a Google or a Facebook, but it's definitely going to be somewhere in the middle that is still pretty damn good. And I think that we need more people who are focused on trying to see that future through. Yeah, you.
Things like recommendation algorithms at play when it comes to like giving you new content. How much of curating online is an illusion?
How much is of curating? Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. I think of like the Pinterest model, right? Of like, or having any kind of suggested content algorithm. It's like, it understands what you kind of want to look at and it serves you things that are in that similar vein, right? And I think that's like, giving candy to a baby. Like, it's really easy. It's like, you can kind of surf through and have this illusion of, this is what I want to be looking at because they told me. And I think that I think that having a system of people who can be curating in these networks and like actively recommending the things that they care about, because we've all become, like, whether we like it or not, if we're on social media, these really talented curators. Anytime that we screenshot or send something to a friend, we're curating, we're making an intentional like decision about we care about this and we kind of want to signal it back in some kind of way. I think removing barriers from that process and letting everybody contribute to the options of what is like out there on the marketplace, and then following people who are curating that you enjoy, who are curating things that you enjoy, is actually a much more effective thing than the algorithm. I think like having that personal connection or even like known vetted interest of someone that you've like certified that you want to be like following as a tastemaker or a curator in their own right, is a really easy way to get past like this illusion of curating. And so it allows you to work into a system where you can then be like, okay, this is organic. This is something that I've like thought through, or someone that I trust has thought through. And so there's more agency and control in that process. What's up?
I really think there's something very beautiful about what you said about art and artist practice, authentic portrait of someone's lifestyle. In that, a curation can be just authentic portrait of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, hypothetically, that let's say on a marketplace or a platform of curated content, curated profiles, that we eventually see some kind of modification of everyone is trying to sell their curation.
Right. Yeah.
Do you worry at all that we start to lose, or people start to lose the incentive to be authentic in a marketplace where they see certain curated profiles as being more sellable, marketable, or profitable?
I think that like the sharing economy is really powerful, and I think it's Stuart Brand who said something along the lines of like information will always be free. And so like if you want to, I think people should have the tools, like if you've spent a lot of time and you're an expert in something that not many people are, you should have probably the tools to sell that kind of thing and like monetize that process. I think that's important. But I think at the end of the day, what will win out is democratic information, and most of the things that we consume and get from these curators and tastemakers will be free. And so like, yeah, that's kind of a rare case where I don't think that a platform like Silk or any of these other platforms moving forward in the attention economy are going to be getting by on strictly monetizing taste, and I don't think they should either. I think that like that would be a regression. So yeah, there's other ways to do this, and I think that will be kind of untouched on the whole, I should say. Nazreen. Mm.
Accelerating this idea of like the artist as a lifestyle. Because I don't know, I feel like we're just like stuck with like these like
Without like going too deep into something that I don't have like the best understanding of, I think that like when you think of like the democratization of the artist, it's less of one where I think like the artists should be monetizing themselves. You know, like I don't think that the artist needs to be sustaining their career off of being an artist. I think it's actually again like just a way of living life. And so I hope that whether or not we have UBI and endless free time to pursue our passions or whatever, and capital to do so, stability, I hope that more and more people in the meantime can continue to think of themselves as artists, even if they're just a curator. Like even if they're just somebody like at an office job in Manhattan, like working finance or something. There's all these different ways you can think of like what is the art of the way that I'm living. And that's what I kind of want to encourage more of people in here to think about. I think we'll wrap it there. We got like 30 seconds left. So thank you guys. I appreciate it.